My friends, I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on this magnificent Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. I know that I have. We got a lot accomplished this weekend, had a great worship service yesterday. God truly blessed, and we're ready to go for another great week. The best way to start your day, best way to start your week, best way to start your life. Copy of the Word of God. So let's jump right into James chapter 1. And remember what James has been telling us. He's been talking about perseverance, enduring, and even temptation, because as we go back to verse 12, he says, "Blessed is the man who endures temptation," and that's a lot to say, because the word blessed literally means happy. It's that idea of fulfillment, and that's the thing. When we are struggling with temptation, we're not usually feeling very happy, right? Most times we're feeling guilty because a lot of times we're losing the battle. But when Paul says, when James says, excuse me, when James says enduring temptation, that means that we're fighting the fight. And that means that we're trusting in the Lord who's giving us strength to do that. It's like the old saying, God doesn't give you what you can handle, He handles what He gives you. And that really is a truth in my life that I've experienced. And there's a promise there. But look at what he says in verse 13. Listen to this. He says, "Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone." Now listen, there are two words that are important here, and we'll talk about the other word here before long. But the first word is tempted. The second word is tested. God will test you. Not because he doesn't know how strong you are, but because you don't know how strong you are. And you need to know that. And so he will allow things to come into your life that will test you, cause you to struggle, cause you to work harder. Because as I was reminded by an old football coach yesterday, if you really want to make your team stronger, you got to work them until their legs are like noodles and they can barely walk out of the weight room. And in 48 hours, when they've recovered, they're stronger than they were before. Same is true spiritually. Our spiritual muscles have to be tested. We've got to break them down so that God can build them up, or God breaks them down so that he can build them up. But that's testing. James is talking about tempting. And he says, don't ever say that God has tempted you, because temptation has an evil connotation. We are tempted to overeat. We are tempted to drink too much. We're tempted to watch things we shouldn't watch. Those are our temptations, bad things. And the enemy is the one who throws that at us. Just like Jesus was tempted for 40 days in the wilderness. Understand, that's what he does to us. The enemy tempts us, trying to get us to do things we shouldn't do, say things we shouldn't say, think things we shouldn't think, so that our spiritual muscles are destroyed. You see, every time we give into temptation, we become weaker. That's just the way it is. That's why it's so easy once you've given into temptation once to do it the second time and the third time and the fourth time. And only when you truly get on your knees and do battle, spiritual battle with the enemy at that point, only then can you regain your foothold, your spiritual foothold, and grow strong again. James says that God doesn't tempt anyone because he cannot be tempted by evil. Now, look at verse 14. He says, "But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed." Now, here's the thing about this. The devil knows what pleases you. The devil knows what entices you. I use this illustration over and over again, but it's a true illustration. I am never tempted to eat liver. Hate liver, hate the smell of liver, can't stand it. But you put a chocolate cake in front of me, man, I will eat it up. Because listen, sin is not liver. Sin is chocolate cake. Sin is that which draws us, which entices us. And your temptations are going to be different from mine because your desires are different from mine. But the enemy, though he doesn't know our minds and he doesn't know our hearts, he's a keen observer of our behavior. He's a psychologist extraordinaire. He understands human behavior and he understands what affects you. And so that's where he's going to hit you every time. And so you've got to be on guard. That's why we read over and over again in the Bible. We'll talk about this later too. James tells us that we are to submit to God, resist the devil, and he'll flee from us. All three of those are important. But the first thing is we've got to submit to God. We know those areas where we're tempted. So surrender those areas to God. Ask Him for strength to stand. And when the temptations come, resist with all of your heart. And if you find yourself struggling and almost falling, then the Bible tells us where to flee those temptations. And that's important. Get out of there. Because if you can't handle it, you've got to leave. Think about that today. Be blessed, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.